Ready? Okay. I'd like to call this meeting to order. A meeting of the Plan Commission on Monday, December 13th at 6:30 p.m. in the Germantown Village Hall boardroom, and also can be accessed via WebEx. This meeting has been given public notice in accordance with Wisconsin statute sections 19.83 and 19.84 in such form that will apprise the general public and news media of subject matter that is intended for discussion and action. Roll call shows all commissioners present except for Mr. Kimbler, who might be joining us shortly. Next item on the agenda is public input and public appearance. Public input and public appearance is available for anybody that would like to come forward. If you're here to speak on any of the public hearings that we have on tonight's agenda, which there are two, please wait until that agenda item has been mentioned to come forward and speak for or against any of those public hearing items. But if there's anyone else that's here for anything else beyond the public hearings that would like to bring some information before this body, you're welcome to do so at this time. All I would ask is you come to the podium and state your name and your address for the record. Is there anyone wishing to come forward for public input or public appearance? Anybody online? All right, then we can go on to the next item, which is the approval of minutes from the November 8th, 2021 and the November 29th, 2021 Plan Commission meeting.
I'll move to approve the minutes of the meeting, both dates.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion to approve the minutes? There's no discussion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed? Motion carries. That then takes us to new business, starting with new business item A. Odyssey Hotel Group, LLC, agent and property owner of Holiday Inn Express, located at West 177 North 9675, Rivers Bend Lane. Amendment 2, number 1, the Nrpa Plan Development District, PDD, Resolution -19-16 to amend the General Development Plan. And number 2, the Rivers Bend Plan Development District, Resolution number 18-16 to amend the General Development Plan and Site Plan Review for exterior building renovations. It's on the agenda for public hearing and action tonight. Gives a little bit of background and information on our new business item A. I'll turn the meeting over to our Community Development Director, Jeff Retzlaff. Jeff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ratchet Dingra, agent for Odyssey Hotel Group and A&R Capital LLC property owners, has submitted a proposal to amend plan development districts, specifically conditions and restrictions, and also a site and building plan application for expansion of the hotel property located on Rivers Bend Lane. It's highlighted, the property is highlighted in the green boundary on the screen. This project involves two properties, the green highlighted property and also the red highlighted property, a portion of which is shown on the screen. The red highlighted property is 34.6 acres in size. It's the former Rivers Bend Golf Course. It's currently owned by A&R Capital LLC. The zoning is institutional district with the planned development district overlay. Historically, it's been used for a golf course. It has a significant amount of wetland, and the Menominee River floodplain runs through the property. The Rivers Bend Planned Development District was created in 2013 in order to enable redevelopment of the golf course property into a total of 3 parcels, 2 of which are commercial retail parcels along County Line Road with a shared parking area for all 3 parcels. I'm going to skip ahead here. There is the entire 34.6 acre property, formerly Rivers Bend Golf Course. And the portion of the slide on the left shows how back in 2013, a certified survey map that was approved as part of an overall development package created 3 parcels from the golf course property. One parcel is is where the BWW, the Buffalo Wild Wings restaurant, is located in the front, with parking to the north and in the back, if you will. The Starbucks multi-tenant commercial building is the parcel on the east side. Again, with the building up front, parking to the north or in the back. And the golf course property, the remaining portion of the golf course property that is no longer a golf course as of 2016. At the time in 2013, when the property was divided, along with creating the three parcels, there was a series of easements that were created across all the properties that gave each property owner the ability to access and cross over. On the slide on the right, on the north part, the top part of the slide, I've got a red arrow pointing at a golf course parking easement area that was granted across the BWW and the Starbucks parcels to provide for parking to what was intended to be a golf course, a modified golf course development, where there was going to be a new 1,500 square foot clubhouse constructed. In fact, I've got a graphic here that shows that on the left. At the right, it's essentially the same site plan layout. On the left is a graphic of what was proposed and approved back in 2013. As you can see on the north part, the top part of the parking areas in the middle, there's a small building highlighted in the gold or the brown color, some landscaping. It was intended that along the top of that parking area, there was going to be the building, a golf cart storage area, and also some landscaping along the what would be the east side of the building, fronting that entire parking area on the top. And it was that those features that were intended to create a buffer area, if you will, between the parking area and the Rivers Bend residential condominiums to the northeast. On the right is a plan that was approved in 2014, slight modification to the layout of the building, the location, and also the buildings to the south. In 2013, in addition to the Wild Wings building, there was going to be a Olive Garden proposal. And within a year, or actually it was within a couple of months after approval, the Olive Garden proposal was withdrawn, and Continental Properties came up with a new proposal for what's now the multi-tenant commercial retail area that has the Starbucks as one of the tenants, and the Jimmy John's, and there's I forget what the other use is. In any event, in 2016, the red parcel, the former golf course, was acquired by A&R Capital as part of a larger proposal by the owner of the hotel property to expand the hotel. And here's a graphic that shows within a year or so the existing hotel property highlighted in green. It's actually a little bit older than that. You can see parking lot. You can still see the remnants of the temporary golf course operation that was in existence at the time from 2013 to about 2016. We issued temporary use permits to allow the owner to operate out of a temporary office type building while he tried to keep the business going, and ultimately that business ceased and the property was sold. The intention was the hotel expansion would require some additional parking, and the thought was that the owner of the hotel property would buy the former golf course property and create a small off-site parking area on the north side of the parking areas serving the Wild Wings and the Starbucks and the former golf course. And As part of that proposal, there was going to be rebranding of the hotel, going from 2 to 4 stories. And as part of that package, there were a couple of parking lot expansion options that were floated at the time. They were all intended to be submitted in greater detail a few years down the road, once the expansion was going to take place. But the thought was that if the hotel expanded to 123 guest rooms, there would be 33 additional stalls of parking that would be provided on the north side of that parking stall easement, as you can see on the screen. But if the room count was higher, up to 130 guest rooms, there would be a total of 58 additional stalls provided in 2 adjacent areas, providing the additional parking to the west of the existing hotel. The existing hotel property is 2.9 acres in size. It's Zone B5 highway business. The historical use has been for a hotel. The Nrpa PDD was created in 1977 to facilitate the initial development of a 72-room hotel at the time. And as I mentioned, in 2016, the owner proposed to rebrand and expand the hotel to as many as 130 rooms. As part of the PDD amendment, the provisions were revised to allow up to 130 rooms, allow a taller building height of up to 50 feet from 35 to accommodate the additional up to 2 floors that would have been added up to 4 floors. Increase in the required parking stalls from 85 to 130 stalls if there are 123 rooms, and then reduce the parking stall size from 180 to 162 square feet, and also to reduce the parking lot setback requirements to accommodate that off-site parking area proposed as part of the overall development. Again, in 2016, we were told that those changes to the PDD were necessary to put in place the restrictions or parameters, if you will, that would allow the hotel to rebrand and expand. And that's where we are today. The property owner is proposing to rebrand the facility. The renderings that we have as part of the package show a hotel, a building that's up to 3 stories in height, 3 floors, not 4. And the room count would be up to 100 guest rooms and not the 130 maximum as was originally discussed back in 2016. As part of this proposal, the owner is requesting, as part of the PDD amendment, to reduce the number of required parking stalls from 128 to 103. Again, to accommodate just 100 guest rooms, and also to revise the general development plan to allow for, reflect a slightly different off-site parking area that would be developed as part of that parking lot easement to the west. This graphic shows, and it's in the packet, as part of this revised expansion of the hotel up to 100 guest rooms, the additional parking required, 26 stalls, would be provided by the existing pavement that's already in place. And it's as part of that existing parking stall easement on the north side of the existing parking lot. There would be some very minor modifications to that area. On the far west side, an existing dumpster enclosure would be removed and converted to 2 parking stalls. Right now, if you've ever been back there, it's not being used. The business it was intended to serve, the golf course, isn't there, and it's sort of turned into kind of a late night dump site, I think, based on what I've seen in there the few times I've been back there. The other improvement proposed is to construct a sidewalk from the west side of the hotel, shown here on the far right side of the screen, that would go over to that parking stall easement. There's a slight dip in the grade east of the existing parking lot, so that would make it easier for people to get from the parking stalls on the west over to the building. And then the final improvement would be some supplemental landscaping. What's proposed as part of this site plan is to add some trees just north and west of the existing berm and trees that were planted as part of the original development. And that's the extent of the proposal for the hotel expansion. There's also a site plan, detailed site plan application for the hotel expansion itself that was included as part of the package. But as we'll talk about in just a minute, the applicant is requesting that both the public hearing and consideration and action on the applications to amend the PDD and also on the site plan. They're asking for those applications to be tabled until the January meeting. The owner was not able to be at the meeting this evening. And so that request is on the table. And as I was mentioning to the chairman before we got started, typically what we've done in situations like this is we grant the request to table the action and public hearing, open the public hearing because it's been advertised. It's up to the chair to decide if they want to take public comment at this point in time. If they do, we take the comment and we just simply table and keep the public hearing open until the next meeting, and then pick up where we left off there. So that's where we're at right now.
Okay. And those that are in the audience tonight, those that are here for new business item A to speak at the public hearing, could you raise your hands, please? All right, since you came out and because of it was noticed, we'll go through with public hearing tonight and have your comments heard and put into the record, and then we'll look for the commissioners to table it, and then it would be brought forward again at the January 10th meeting when the owner is here, and for us to consider and ask questions of him and consider actions on the items that are listed here. So with that, then I'll open the public hearing by hereby stating a notice is hereby given that a public hearing will be held before the Village of Germantown Plan Commission at the Germantown Village Hall located on Mequon Road in Germantown and virtually through the WebEx platform on Monday, December 13th at 6:30 p.m. or later. The purpose of said hearing is to hear any and all parties, their attorneys or agents for or against the following application filed by the applicant for the amendment to the Nrpa Plan Development District Resolution 19-16 to amend the general development plan and reduce the total number of required parking stalls. And number two, the Rivers Bend Plan Development District Resolution 18-16 to amend the general development plan. The applicants are the Odyssey Hotel Group, LLC, and the property is located as the Holiday Inn Express at West 177 North 9675 Rivers Bend Lane. Before I ask people to come forward or to speak for or against, I do have two communications that were sent to us that I'd like to, actually have one that I'd like to read into the record. And it was received today, and its subject line reads Rivers Bend Ranch 2 HOA with the Odyssey Hotel Group requests. I, Wally Watson, am a resident of Rivers Bend in the area where parking and landscape plans will impact me and my neighbors. Our concern is that the use of parking, approximately 25 to 30 spaces at the north end of the present parking lot that includes businesses like Buffalo Wild Wings, Starbucks, etc., use of these spaces will cause car lights to shine underneath our fir trees and into our houses, plus the unwanted intrusion into the land beyond the parking spaces. Activities such as partying, bonfires, fishing, etc. would be a nuisance and require calls to the police. The berm referenced in the plan was built to protect us from some of the preceding issues. However, when it was planned, we asked that it be extended to cover our condo issues. It was not extended. The evergreens in our backyards do little to protect us from the issues we are concerned about. We recommend that a berm 6 to 8 feet high with evergreens on it approximately 10 to 15 feet apart to extend from the east where the present berm exists to the west, extending all the way across all parking spaces to the ditch. Since the hotel owns all of this property, building a berm would be inexpensive. It will eliminate intrusions beyond the space and eliminate car lights into our condos. We will be present at the meeting. Thank you, Wally and Terry Watson, Jerry and Carol Palmer, and Robert and Sue Emke, and others. Jerry and Terry Watson are located at West 178, North 9743, Rivers Bend Circle West. Jerry and Carol Kammer are located at West 178, North 9745, Rivers Bend Circle West. And Sue Emke is located at West 178, North 9739, Rivers Bend Circle West. And that was an email that we had received today in regards to this public hearing. So anyone within the audience or joining us via WebEx would like to come forward to speak for or against the items that are for the Nrpa Plan Development District or the Rivers Bend Plan Development District and General Development Plan, you're welcome to do so. All I would ask is you come to the podium and state your name and your address for the record. Is there anyone wishing to come forward to speak for or against? Sir? I just ask that you also speak directly into the microphone when you're at the podium. It is sometimes hard for people within the audience to hear.
Good day. My name is Wally Watson. I'm the one that sent the email. You had a map on there that showed where the berm was. I don't know if that can be brought back up again or not.
That one, sir? Is that the one you're looking for, sir?
That's the, I could, that's the new one.
What do you want, would you want us to, I can bring up an aerial that shows the existing parking lot relative to the trees and that.
If we could get WebEx on the screens in the boardroom here.
Can you stop at that one for a minute?
Thank you.
Does that one work for you, sir?
The properties. Florida. Berm that was put in here. Big, so somebody coming in here and shine right in. This is an old picture. These trees, the limbs on the bottom were cut off so that we could enjoy the golf course. So lights, people should parking here, shine into it. Shine all the way down, these others. That one fell. Here, so as you can see the Buffalo Wild Wings outdoor patio on the west side of its building all night or all till they close at midnight or what. So right now there are cars parking there's cars parking there all the time, sometimes at night, sometimes during the day. Cars, some of them aren't. Dumpster is there with everything open. Cars at night, especially in the summer, a lot of people go back in here and fishing or build a bonfire or have some beer parties. A little noise. And it's distracting to us as residents. One of the things I had suggested was berm was built, the existing berm was here, built across here, to eliminate people from walking into the property, doing the kind of things they were doing. They the light shining into us because take this dirt and build that berm up right across here, eliminate problems with police having to be called, light shining into our place, or anybody driving into this property, because right now there's no reason anybody can't drive all the way down here on this property. Anyway, our suggestion was to do that. At first I thought a fence, but then
Oops, careful.
I thought fence might be a lot more expensive for the owner, trying to be good as we could be and also getting our needs taken care of by having him take his own dirt and just pile it up 6 or 8 feet high as a berm. The berm that is proposed is not going to do anything for the people that are on down toward the pond on the right-hand side. Still see all the lights. Oh, that was our suggestion.
So just so I'm clear, because I remember when this first came forward in 2016 and there was a request to extend the berm and add some trees, which some of it was done, and then there were some trees that were put down in that area. So now you're asking for a berm to be from the east corner of that parking lot all the way over to the west corner of that parking lot to help block any lights that would be pointed in that direction when they come in. Okay, that's just so I'm understanding exactly what the request is. Okay. I appreciate you coming forward, sir. Is there anyone else that wishes to come forward at this time to speak for or against the changes to the general development plan or the changes to the plan development district? Good evening. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Anyone?
W18030 Bramblewood Court. I am a resident of Rivers Bend, and I am the vice president of the governing board. I am here tonight representing the residents of the entire association. We have seen the issue with the lights from the parking lot and occasional disruptions from people picnicking, bonfires and so on. And I think you can see in those photographs instances where the car headlights are able to shine directly into people's bedrooms. You can see other instances where the condominiums buildings are farther away, but directly in line with the headlights as they park. We have asked in the past for some remediation of the light issues. I think that I'd say a satisfactory attempt was, an unsatisfactory attempt was made. The results are a partial improvement at best. The solution that Mr. Watson has proposed, a berm across the entire parking lot, or possibly an opaque fence of some construction across the back of the parking lot, would be an acceptable solution, I believe. I don't mean to recommend any particular solution, only to point out the problem and ask that the property owner, this board, consider. I'm open to any questions.
Anybody have any questions? No, sir, no questions, but, oh, Mr. Lashewski.
How many instances of, I'll call it trespassing have you had back there, bonfires, other incidents like that?
I would have to ask Mr. Watson to answer that question for you, sir.
$50 and $100? So they physically drive their automobiles back there? They physically drive automobiles back there?
Call the police.
Interesting. Thank you. And
Yep.
the answer was 50 to 100 in the summer. Okay, thank you.
We have found out on other projects that you need to call the police every time. We have found out on other projects that you need to call the police every time. So if you see them back there, it's a violation, call the police.
There's point and purpose in that is it creates a record. So as things come forward for plan development district or renewal of, or just of the proximity of how it's supposed to work, if there's enough complaints that come forward that start to move it outside the bounds of what's been approved, then it has to be brought forward to us and then reconsidered. So more complaints are better because, like I said, it starts to develop that record. If we would contact the police department and ask them, I don't think they would tell us based on their reports that it's 50 to 100. They probably are, I don't know, but it would be less than that. So that's why Trustee Baum has said that if you see them back there, it makes that record so that as things like this come forward, it can be used as information and consideration of what the change is being requested to be. Not that we want to make you, give you a job or a task or anything, but it just helps everybody all the way around. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you for coming forward, sir. Is there anyone else that wishes to come forward at this time to speak for or against the Plan Development District resolution or the change to the general development plan? Anyone else wishing to come forward to speak for or against? Okay, then we'll close this portion of the public hearing. Is there anyone online? No? Okay. And this hearing is closed, and I will then give it to the commissioners to decide what to do next.
Make a motion that we table this item until the January 10th meeting.
Table or postpone?
It says table on here.
Okay, table it is. Motion made. Do we have a second? Okay, since it's been requested to be tabled, there'll be no discussion. All those in favor of tabling this until the January 10th Plan Commission meeting, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None opposed? Motion carries. What will happen at the January 10th meeting is we'll also have a public hearing session as well. So if other people within your development would like to come forward to speak for or against, they're welcome to do so at the January 10th meeting too.
Can I ask that we also reach out to the police department and find out what they have, any records that they have of things happening here?
Because that was a concern, I remember when this was brought forward. The additional use of that property than just letting it go fallow.
Right. That and weeds.
Yeah, a weed concern was huge too at that time, that it wasn't going to be the Thistle Hills of Germantown. All right, that should take it for new business item A. We thank you all for coming tonight. We appreciate you spending time with us and coming here to let us know your thoughts. And if there is any questions, please feel free to reach out to me or any of these board members and ask your questions as well. So thank you. Have a good night. Next item under new business is new business item B, Village of Germantown Floodplain Zoning Ordinance Amendment to Section 23 of the Germantown Municipal Code, and includes the adoption of the revised flood insurance rate maps, FIRMS, and revised flood insurance study, FIS, for public hearing and action. To give us more information and background on this new business item, I'll turn the meeting over to our Associate Planner, Emily Zant.
Thank you. So the Community Development Department is presenting an amended floodplain zoning code, which is Chapter 23 of the Germantown Municipal Code, a revised flood insurance study, and a revised flood insurance rate maps for consideration and adoption for the purposes of maintaining the village's eligibility in the federal national flood insurance program. So as stated in the purpose section of the village's floodplain ordinance, two of the primary purposes of the ordinance are to protect life, health, and property, and to minimize the rescue and relief efforts undertaken at the expense of taxpayers. As such, the Village of Germantown is a participating community in the National Flood Insurance Program that's administered through the Department of Homeland Security's Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA. In exchange for adopting and enforcing the floodplain management ordinance, federally backed flood insurance and disaster relief is made available to residents and property owners within the village because of our status as that participating community. So I just wanted to give a little bit of background about the regulatory framework of the floodplain zoning code, just for your reference. So the Department of Homeland Security, or the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, does run the National Flood Insurance Program, which was established in 1968. The Village of Germantown has been an ongoing participating community since 1974. There are two main components of the National Flood Insurance Program, one of which is the flood insurance study, and the other is the flood insurance rate maps. The Wisconsin DNR does develop and maintain a model floodplain ordinance that assists local governments in adopting the minimum requirements of the National Floodplain Flood Insurance Program. Locally, the village is responsible for adopting a floodplain zoning district, adopting the model ordinance as prepared by the Wisconsin DNR, and also adopting the latest FIS and firm panels. Just a little bit of background. In 2013, the village adopted revised flood insurance studies and the flood insurance rate maps covering the entire village as a part of FEMA's nationwide flood map modernization program that began in 2006. This program was intended to create more reliable and accurate floodplain maps in a digital format versus just the old paper copies. The resulting maps presented floodplain boundaries and hazard areas, flood elevations overlaid on aerial photography. Since the completion of that flood map modernization program, FEMA and the DNR have been conducting additional, more detailed studies of certain watersheds. So again, in 2015, there was an ordinance amendment, an updated flood insurance study, and the updated firm panels were adopted as a result of a more detailed study of the Rock River watershed in Washington County, which included Amy Bell Creek and the Bark River in the village of Richfield. The updated flood insurance study and the firm panel revisions didn't actually impact any of the area within the village of Germantown, but the village was required to adopt those panels that covered area beyond the village of Richfield. These amendments don't happen very often and are generally limited to a particular watershed or area within a watershed. So the updated flood insurance studies and the flood insurance rate maps presented for adoption today were completed as a part of the Cedar Creek Risk Map, which is Mapping, Assessment, and Planning project in Washington County. You can see the Cedar Creek watershed area in red on the screen there. This study included new and revised studies for 80 miles of stream, including Cedar Creek and 24 tributaries. The project reached FEMA's letter of final determination as of August 25th of this year. That date was the beginning of the 6-month floodplain zoning ordinance adoption phase. All jurisdictions within Washington County were affected by the recent study and will have until February 25th of next year to adopt the revised flood insurance study, the flood insurance rate map panels, as well as the Wisconsin DNR's model floodplain zoning ordinance, which was effective April of this year. The adoption of these items will allow the village of Germantown to remain in good standing with the National Floodplain Insurance Program. So these are the firm panels, the flood insurance rate map panels for the village of Germantown. If I go back here, you can see the village of Germantown general boundary highlighted in the dashed yellow line in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. So the impacted panels are boxed in black there along the north and then the west side of the village. And those actual firm panels were included in your packet if you want to take a look at those. So the revised flood insurance study is DNR and FEMA's updated hydrologic and hydraulic analysis of base flood conditions within the Cedar Creek watershed in Washington County. So it's really just a more detailed look at that watershed and provides base flood elevation numbers and specific floodplain areas or floodways in that area. The revised flood insurance rate maps include the 5 firm panels that were impacted by the study. And then with the zoning code text amendment, we'll be adopting the revised flood insurance study, those 5 revised firms, and the latest DNR model ordinance, which was updated by the DNR in 2019, and will ensure Germantown remains in good standing with the National Flood Insurance Program. So it's staff's recommendation to approve the proposed floodplain zoning code amendment as drafted, which includes by reference the revised flood insurance study and the flood insurance rate maps, having an effective date of February 25th, 2022. Take any questions you have.
Okay, does anybody have any questions? Questions? Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Williams.
Just one quick one. I read in there again that these changes, again, do not impact the village of Germantown. We're really looking over into Richfield as it relates to the updates. Is that accurate?
That was the 2015. Yeah. So this one does impact some of those areas along the northern and western boundary of the village. Correct.
Mr. Leszewski.
If I look at this, this is like a binomial decision. We either accept it as totality or we reject it. If we reject it, we're not in the NFIP. So it's pretty much not much to discuss here, correct?
Correct. So we're adapting this ordinance so that we make sure we're in compliance with the National Flood Insurance Program. Correct.
Mr. Nellis.
Is there a summary of the changes that were made to the ordinance that we might be adopting here?
Not specifically, nothing that was created and given to us. I can highlight some of the differences. One of the main things, and it was included in the staff report, was the addition of, let's see here, hold on just a second. The addition of language within the non-conforming uses section, and that provides language related to Wisconsin Act 175, which was adopted in 2019, and that essentially prevents jurisdictions from prohibiting repair, reconstruction, or improvement of a non-conforming structure based on cost. A non-conforming building will permanently be changed to comply with the floodplain ordinance or be raised up above the flood protection elevation. So that's one major change. Beyond that, it's seemed to me basically like clarification. There's a couple different additional definitions, a little more on the campground section of the code, but nothing too substantial.
As far as land area, either within or without the floodplain, is that an interest? To your
Yeah,
question?
I guess I would like to know how much land area is affected here.
Yeah, what we don't have is like a detailed summary of how much was in before versus now. But what we do have, and we don't have it up. So can we get it up? There was a link included in the packet to a website that showed an aerial photograph of the whole area that you could zoom in and out of. And then they had this line through the middle, and you could sort of move that window from side to side. And if you moved it to the left, it would show what the floodplain was or currently is mapped. And then if you slide over to the right, it shows you the changes under the new plan. So you can actually see exactly where the boundary changes across a particular property or area in the affected area of the village. More importantly, though, what's beneficial is the floodplain area that's shown on the maps now in almost all cases has actual base flood elevations that were calculated. Before, it was sort of this wide swath of an area in the Cedar Creek watershed that was shown as floodplain that didn't have specific elevations. It was only based on some topography around the boundary lines. It's going to work. All right. Well, I would encourage you to take a look at that link. You can play around with it a little bit. From my review of it, some of for example, one significant change in the Holy Hill Road area just east of 41. As you're heading east, that depression, as you're heading towards the Briggs and Stratton building, there's a creek that the road crosses. Under the old floodplain maps, the floodplain through that area was very narrow. And now under the new maps, it's expanded a little bit outward to more on the west and east sides of that particular area.
So really the map is just providing more accurate information about what's really there instead of just kind of some general location of the floodplain.
Mr. Leshevsky.
It's embarrassed I don't know this, but at what point does a floodplain become a wetlands? Like, is a 100-year floodplain, that be a wetlands or not?
Can be. Fairly often, you'll see wetland boundaries that coincide very closely with floodplain boundaries. In other cases, if the terrain is very steep, the floodplain is very narrow around the navigable waterway. And if there's any wetland in there, it may also be very narrow, but on a wider open plain, a flat area, the floodplain area and wetlands can be extensive. In some cases, the floodplain can be very wide and the wetland area actually very narrow. It depends on the navigable waterway and the soil conditions and the
The
topography.
floodplain isn't always a wetlands.
Correct. It's not always that case.
You can build in that area. Buy the insurance. Thanks.
But you're right. Your earlier question, there's not much choice here. We could object to the maps, but we would have to do our own hydrologic and hydraulic studies to prove wrong what the information is. And in fact, in 2013, we had a similar instance. The original conversion of the paper to digital maps, we had 3 or 4 pages of objections to what they were showing for the village. They really didn't do the level of study that was required. In fact, there's some areas that were so blatant, it was, how can you not change this? And one of them was the landfill. They actually showed the current Omega Hills landfill, a portion of it, as being in a floodplain that no longer existed because of all the fill. We objected to that, but they didn't change the map. Now with this sort of study, we're getting more accurate information, and hopefully the rest of the village will be impacted over time as those studies are done.
Nils?
So is this updated information, assuming we do adopt it, going to be wrapped into our 2050 land use plan information?
To the extent that we can, yeah, we have the information now. It'll show up in the environmental sections in the mapping.
Any other questions? Okay, if there's no other questions, then I can open this public hearing by hereby stating a notice is hereby given that a public hearing will be held before the Village of Germantown Plan Commission at the Germantown Village Hall located on Mequon Road in Germantown on Monday, December 13th at 6:30 p.m. or later. The purpose of said hearing is to solicit public comments from any and all parties, their attorneys or agents, for or against an amendment to the Village of Germantown Floodplain Zoning Ordinance Section 23 of the Village of Germantown Municipal Code that includes the adoption of revised flood insurance rate maps, FIRM, and revised flood insurance study, FIS, for an effective date of January 25th, 2022, as required by state and federal law, in order for the Village of Germantown to remain compliant with and participate in the National Flood Insurance Program, the NFIP. The revised firm floodplain maps are in the latest flood insurance rate maps prepared by the Federal Emergency Management Agency, better known as FEMA. The floodplain zoning code, flood insurance study, and flood insurance maps are intended to protect life, health, and property in floodplain areas, govern permitted use and development activities of property located within or affected by mapped floodplains, and allow continued participation in the National Flood Insurance Program. So, is there anyone that would wish to come forward to speak for or against the approval of this floodplain map amendment? Anyone wishing to come forward to speak for or against? One last time, is there anyone wishing to come forward to speak for or against the amendment as proposed in the floodplain zoning ordinance or floodplain insurance study? And this public hearing is now closed. Commissioners?
Make a motion that we approve the floodplain zoning ordinance amendment as presented.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? No discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? None opposed? Motion carries. Next item of new business is new business item C, TR Capital LLC, agent and property owner of West 219 West 11588 Appleton Avenue, a site plan review for redevelopment of a 3.65 acre commercial self-storage facility. Give us more information background on this new business item. We'll turn the meeting back over to our associate planner, Emily Zant.
Thank you. So this item was before you last month at the November 8th meeting. The Plan Commission voted to postpone this item. Since then, village staff and the village's consulting engineer have met to discuss and work through the concerns brought forth by staff and the Plan Commission. Again, this property is zoned M1 industrial. The rezoning of the property took place in August of this year and included a land use plan map amendment, the rezoning, and a conditional use permit for the property to be used and redeveloped from the existing single-family home and commercial plant sales into both enclosed self-storage and exterior parking self-storage. This item was last before you again last month, and the applicant has submitted revised plans. So the proposed site development and building plans now include the same similar three enclosed self-storage buildings, 61 units total, 71 parking spaces for outdoor vehicle storage, a 6-foot chain link fence along the west, south, and east property lines with a rolling gate at the driveway to enclose the property, an 8-foot fence with privacy slats along the north property line, and the buildings along the north and south property lines do act as the fence in those areas. There will be asphalt paving on the western portion of the property near the storage buildings and a recycled asphalt paving in the outdoor parking storage area towards the east side of the property. The revised site plan before you does include a 15-foot setback between the north storage building and the north property line to allow additional space for landscape screening. The 15-foot setback requested by staff could not be continued along the entire north property line due to the location of the DNR cap, which is just over 8 feet from the north property line. The access again will be in the existing location off of Appleton Avenue. There's no temporary on-site parking. The utilities, the existing well has been abandoned and the septic tank has been removed. These utilities will not be replaced. And the subject property will be served by the proposed detention pond in the southeast corner of the property. The site will contain 74.6% impervious surface and meets the 80% maximum requirement for impervious surface in the M1 Limited Industrial District. The applicant has submitted a revised landscape plan based on staff and Plan Commission comments. The revised plan includes additional evergreen trees along the north property line to screen the buildings and the parking area. Additional evergreen and deciduous trees have also been added along the south property line for improved screening of the self-storage building. Plantings are not feasible along the eastern half of the south property line due to the proposed grading. Therefore, staff does recommend privacy slats also be added on this portion of the fence to help screen the parking from the south. This has been added as a condition of approval, but generally staff supports the revised landscape plan. The center and the south buildings have not changed since this item was before you last month. However, the applicant has decreased the depth of the north building by 5 feet in order to accommodate that 15-foot setback. The revised building plan elevation was actually inadvertently left out of your packet, but it's included on your desk there. And the only difference really is it's now 20 feet deep rather than 25 feet deep. So the revised ones are on your table there. The lighting plan remains the same. Again, just lighting the interior areas. There's no lighting facing the north or the south of the property. We did have just a few additional comments from the village engineer and the Public Works Department in a memo dated December 8th regarding stormwater and grading on the site. But the applicant will be required to submit a revised plan for approval prior to issuance of a grading permit. The village forester recommended just one tree swap, the autumn blaze maples. He's recommending be replaced with the autumn fantasy maple, which has a better branching structure. So that will be also required to be revised. But otherwise, staff recommends approval of the site development and building plans submitted by TR Capital for the proposed commercial storage facilities at W219 and 11588 Appleton Avenue, subject to the following conditions. And I would just point out that we would request that the first condition be modified to add that November 18th architectural plan set that highlights the 20-foot deep northern building rather than 25 feet deep. And any questions for me?
Mr. Nils?
So just to confirm, these drawings here, sheet A is the north row.
Yes, correct. Yep.
Thank you. Dimensions are a little bit tiny for me to read.
I know, I apologize.
Other questions? Action?
Make a motion to approve the site plan review and architectural approval with the 4 conditions, staff comments, and accepting the November 18th set as presented.
And there are 8 conditions listed.
Okay,
Yep.
8 conditions.
Motion made. Do I have a second? Motion made and seconded. Discussion. Discussion? We have representation from TR Capital here tonight. Any questions? Okay. We appreciate your willingness to work with the village. And again, I appreciate what you're doing to the site, and its change will be dramatic, and the investment that you made not only in time but also in cost to help bring it up to a more pleasant area to pass, not only to pass by but also for the services that you're rendering. So thank you for that. Any other discussion? Mr. Kimler?
It's just, I see you guys have a bunch of arborvitaes going along the building. That's going to be nice. A lot of them, but I guess the one thing I'd be concerned about is that if there's a lot of deer in the area, they might browse those heavily. That's just something to think about. You know, you can maybe replace them with juniper of some sort that's going to have the same stature. I'd be worried about it personally if it was me, because there's an agricultural field right next there. In winter, the deer are going to get hungry, and they'll probably mow down your arborvitaes there.
Further discussion? No further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? None opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming again tonight. Next item under new business is new business item D. Robert Zignago, property owner of Lot 38 in Harvest Hills subdivision, and Michael and Pamela Madrazak, property owners of North 116, West 13444 Elm Lane, applications for a conditional use permit to allow grading and filling on portions of a 25-foot wetland setback, and to a 3-lot certified survey map, or a CSM. Give us more background information on new business item D. We'll turn the meeting back over to our associate planner, Emily Sant.
Thank you. So this item was before you last month as well. The application is for the approval of a 3-lot certified survey map, a rezoning of the property, and then a conditional use permit to allow development within the required 25-foot wetland setback for the property. The Planning Commission did recommend approval of the staff recommended rezoning for the property at the November 8th meeting, so that item has been taken care of. So tonight before you, the applicant is requesting action on the certified survey map request and the conditional use permit. This property is located at the Elm Lane Forest Drive intersection north of there, just west of Harvest Hills. So the proposed CSM, you can see on the left-hand side of your screen the existing configuration of the 33 acre lot in a 3.3 acre parcel, which contains a single-family dwelling. The proposed CSM includes the following: 24 acre lot, lot 1, buildable for a single-family dwelling, which is outlined in blue. Lot 2 would be 5 acres, buildable for a single-family dwelling, which is outlined in green. And then lot 3 would be enlarged to include 7.784 acres and contain the existing single-family dwelling, and that's outlined in red. Access would be off of Elm Lane. There is a 30-foot egress easement that's included on lot 1 for the purpose of accessing lot 2. Lot 3 would continue to take access off of Elm Lane. So the wetland disturbed within the installation of the driveway that will eventually serve lots 1 and 2. There were proper permits received from the DNR and the Army Corps of Engineers, which were included in your packet. The Shoreline Wetland Zoning Code, again, doesn't require an approved CUP to encroach within that 25-foot setback of the wetland. So looking at what has been constructed, there are 3 areas in which the driveway did encroach within that 25-foot wetland setback, totaling 5,732 square feet. The proposed mitigation plan includes planting a native seed mix along the edges of the driveway at a 1-to-1 ratio. They have included a seeding plan which meets the requirement of the mitigation. So staff did have just a few comments. The setbacks shown on the CSM need to be fixed to reflect the proposed lots rather than the existing lots. This has been added as a condition of approval and shall be submitted for review and approval prior to recording of the CSM. Planning and zoning staff do support the revised mitigation plan submitted by the applicant. An annual monitoring report will be required for 3 years as a part of the project. This has also been added as a condition of approval. And Fire Chief Delane has reviewed the proposed driveway and has indicated that a turnaround sufficient for fire apparatus needs to be included in the north end of the driveway. The property owner shall design and construct a turnaround agreed upon and approved by the fire chief. This has also been added as a condition of approval. So staff recommends approval of the proposed 3-lot certified survey map for the Zignago property to create 2 buildable lots and increase the acreage of the existing single-family lot totaling 37.18 acres into 3 parcels located north of Elm Lane, subject to 2 conditions. And staff recommends approval of the conditional use permit to allow development within the 25-foot wetland setback areas and the proposed compensation as presented in the wetland setback compensation plan dated October 7th and revised November 11th of this year pursuant to Chapter 24.04 of the Shoreline Wetland Zoning Code, subject to 1 condition. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer that. The applicant is here and the surveyor, Mr. Yerk, is with us via WebEx.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, questions?
I will make a motion to approve the conditional use permit to allow grading and filling on portions of the 25-foot wetland setback with the 1 condition as presented.
Second that.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. No discussion? To come forward, state your name if you want to put anything in part of discussion for this. To the podium, if you would, sir. That's why you shouldn't sit in back. You should just sit in front. You don't have to go as far.
Stare me down. My name is Bruce Bernardi. At North 120, West 13645 Freshwood Road.
Could you just put that mic more towards
Sure.
where you're talking? Because there are people that
Sure.
have trouble hearing. Appreciate it.
I'm sorry, I live at North 120, West 13645 Freischutz Road. My wife and I built our house there on our 40 acres. Approximately 28 years ago, I'm a lifelong resident and I've lived this entire area all my life. First off, I'm not against Mr. Zignagel building a house there. I just want to make that clear. But I've been here before to express my concern over the water issues. And I understand the subdivision up on top of the hill. All that new runoff because of the roads, the houses and everything else is going to run on Mr. Zignagel's property right now, as it always has, but it will increase. The area on the east side of Mr. Zignagel's property is almost all wetland. There's 18 acres of it, which is already in an environmental corridor that's been protected from any development. The driveway that was installed basically has created a dam right through the middle of the property. He has 2 culverts, but being that I've lived in this area all my life, it's not this year or next year, but at some point that driveway will be underwater. On the survey map that I passed out, that's from his surveyor. The red is where it's marked on their survey where the driveway is, but the driveway actually goes up to the top through the purple, 75 feet from the north lot line to about 300 feet from the west lot line. He has gone through another wetland, which they state 5,700 square feet of wetland. I think that's a little light. There were other ways into this property by doing this. And I think that should have been addressed. When I found out about this driveway, I came up to the village and spoke with Emily. She told me about this, about the permit. I went to the engineering department. He did pull a permit. I'm sorry, he did not pull a permit. He pulled a permit for a culvert. He did not pull a permit for a driveway. Basically, this driveway was installed without any approval. I know it's been addressed before, but I still think that that's something that should come up because there were other ways into this property without disturbing the amount of wetlands that are disturbed. As I said, I've lived here all my life. I have 64 years. And I've been on this property many a times throughout the years. Like I said, there's, maybe not this year, next year, whatever, but there are years where that whole area is flooded right here where his driveway is. So his division of the land, which is fine, his 24 acres and the 18 acres that's in the environmental thing, he really has 6 acres of property. That's fine. I still think there are other alternatives to getting into this property. Now the DNR approved it. Army Corps of Engineers approved it. It says right on the front page of his application or his approval from them, local permits may be required. And he went ahead with the driveway anyway. I don't know. I don't know how the village is addressing this. If he just pays the permit and walks away, or there's some kind of consequence. Also, I have a question. In the paperwork from the village, it says that compensation and or something of planting the grass and stuff is part of the condition. What do you mean by compensation?
The Shoreline Wetland Code, the provisions that we're dealing with here that allow encroachment into a wetland setback area requires to be an offset for the impact in that 25-foot setback, and that we use the term compensation to describe the equivalent area that you're going to be providing in terms of, in this case, planting of native grasses, I believe, as quote unquote compensation for the encroachment into the setback area. Our regulations don't require compensation for filling or crossing the wetland itself. We only deal with the setback area. The wetland itself, the DNR and the Army Corps of Engineers have regulatory authority over, and under their rules, they don't require there to be any compensation or under their program. Anything under 10,000 square feet generally doesn't require any sort of compensation if it's a general wetland fill or.
Right.
It's
Okay.
usually
Go
trade
ahead, I'm
one
sorry.
for one or two for one, depending on what you're taking away versus what is required to plant back or give back to. So and
Okay.
that's usually what the compensation is involving. What is the land that's going to be not remediated, but is going to be replanted based on what you've taken away from it.
Okay. Like I said, I'm not against them building a house there. That's fine, and that's not my decision. But I think the 5,700 feet that they're stating that's been disturbed, I think is a little light.
Based on what? Because we have Mr. Nrpa surveyor who's surveyed the
I
area. that's
understand that,
impacted.
but I don't know. Actual driveway
If you,
was around.
if you take a look at the Wetland Exhibit Map, which was revised as a result of the meeting last time, that shows the 3 places that the driveway does cross over the wetland and encroaches within that 25-foot setback.
Those are the solid black areas on that
Okay.
Yes.
diagram.
Which their DNR and Army Corps of Engineer were aware of? Is that what it's showing? Or that's just on our wetland setback?
The black areas on this exhibit show the amount of area in which the driveway encroaches within the setback. You can see kind of the space in between both black areas that would be considered like the wetland itself, which again, the DNR has regulatory jurisdiction over.
About additional area using this purple drawing that goes through another set of wetlands. The purple goes through another, but yours doesn't. You have these don't. You
Say
understand
it-
what I'm saying?
No, I'm sorry.
This,
say it one more-
this purple line shows it going through this wetland at the top. But the drawing on the screen right now shows it going next to that.
Yes,
What it's given to me by the surveyor,
Now my numbers are approximate. I used a rangefinder.
I
So
understand, but your document is saying it goes through it.
I
The
can
one
see.
from the surveyor says it doesn't go through it. That's what I'm trying to
I
understand.
wasn't on the property per se.
Okay, so then I would have to go by the one that the
Sure,
surveyor
I understand.
gives
I
us.
understand. I
That
understand.
doesn't go through that additional space.
Yep,
Okay,
I understand.
So are you saying that the driveway goes further into the property than what has been presented? Okay. So is the surveyor online?
Yes, he is. What's shown on the proposed CSM,
How do we get him to see this? Is there a way that?
I don't think we need to. He just has to confirm that his drawing illustrates that the driveway doesn't go through that additional wetland area.
Right. I just.
If it goes all the way to the property line, that's what it shows on here.
No, I understand. I was just hoping there's a way that we could have him see what we're seeing, just so we're working off the same base.
I see that online. I surveyed the driveway in, and the wetlands were delineated, by Bay Environmental Strategies back in May of 18. That wetland delineation is good for 5 years.
I can assure you that the driveway as surveyed is exactly how it's shown on the map. And I do believe the wetland that this gentleman's talking about is to the north. Just, I mean, I stay south of that wetland. And I guess the other thing is, if he has a rangefinder and he didn't physically go out on the site, how can he say this is exactly how it is out there?
I'll meet you
And
out.
if he did, then he was basically trespassing on property.
I think he's basing it off his knowledge and experience with the property.
Okay, well, if he didn't go out there and measure in the driveway and measure in where the wetland is, then this is really all kind of mute as far as I'm concerned.
Well,
Right, we're just asking you to verify that your map shows.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
The map is, yes, the map is. I'm sorry.
you need me to send you a picture?
We don't want to get into that type of a discussion. If you could work it out for somebody to meet you out there to just show what you mean, that's fine offline. But as far as we're concerned and what we have in front of us, we have to kind of trust something.
But it all comes down to the point of putting the driveway in one. There was. no-
That I understand too, and I don't like that fact. I don't know of anything that I can use to per se punish that person. Is it the steps and in the order that we would prefer? No, it's not.
I understand that. But, I built my house and I follow the rules and
As do 9 out of 10 people. Absolutely, sir. And we appreciate that very much.
Well, I think that needs to be addressed somehow, so.
Well, we appreciate you coming up and letting us know and also pointing out the things that you wanted to show us here. So thank you.
Thank you.
Further discussion? Mr. Williams?
So I apologize if you guys covered this at the last meeting as I was not there, but the code indicates that a vehicle ingress and egress cannot exceed 25 feet from the right-of-way line and 25 feet from a roadway in a residential district. You're considering this residential district and is way more than 30 feet off of the road. Is it more than 25 feet off of the road? Am I not understanding what the code is saying correctly?
You are, but there's a provision for a shared driveway or like a private drive. That's the wrong one. No wonder I couldn't find it in. So the ingress egress easement across lot 1 is permitted under the subdivision code for private streets. The section includes a minimum standards for private streets that include shared driveways and private lands intended to serve 2 to 15 lots. So that's
I read that on private streets as well, but I believe it indicates private streets have to be approved by village board. Is that correct? Does the board approve this private street?
The village board would approve it as part of their action on the CSM after it goes
And a
from the
conditional
plan
use
commission.
permit. Further discussion? No further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None opposed? Motion carries.
Make a motion to approve the 3-lot certified survey map with the 2 conditions as presented.
Motion made. Do we have a second? Motion made and seconded. Discussion. No discussion? All those in favor? I'm sorry?
I just wanted to point out, I was sort of half listening. I understand Mr. Bernardi's concerns and the notion that the village should take some response to what was done out of sequences and not consulting the village before putting in the driveway. What we were able to do within the parameters of the code is because the work had commenced without getting the permit to go through the setback area, we made the applicant pay a double fee. The original fee is $14.60. You had to pay twice that for the conditional use permit. So there was a monetary penalty, if you will, for that work.
Well, I wish Mr. Bernardi would have stayed and heard that portion. Is he? Oh, there he is. I thought I saw him walking out the door. Okay, good.
I mean, other than that, if somebody goes, like in this case, directly to the DNR and the Army Corps and applies for permits, We don't typically see that until the permit's been issued.
Mhm.
Which is unfortunate, but does have a condition that you get local permits, and sometimes, most times that happens. And the owner, works concurrently with the DNR, the Army Corps, and the village. In this case, that just didn't happen.
Do we know, did Mr. Zignago push that driveway through on his own, or did he have a contractor do it?
I don't know. But he did apply for and get the culvert permit, which Mr. Bernardi referred to. That's essentially the permit that's required to work in the villages right away and install a culvert. There's really not a driveway permit requirement in addition to the culvert permit. In this case, what was required is consultation with the village. We would have identified if you're going through the setback area of the wetland, you'd need the conditional use permit. Eventually, that's what happened in this case with the double fee.
Would it be safe to say that if a recognized contractor that can work within the village would be doing the work, that they would know this? And would come forward requesting those permits and the conditional use for the what's been going into the wetland setback?
I'd like to think so.
Okay, well, hopefully, and Mr. Zignago is here. So going forward, you're going to need more permits and more inspections. Hopefully that you'll go through the process more proper. I don't want to say more properly, but carefully, so that it is done correctly and with the oversight of the village. That we would appreciate very much. And it is hard for people that do go through that process to see others that don't and want to see something not done to them, but in regards to recognition of impropriety, which in this case, you were asked to pay double the amount, because there are limits as to what we can do. We're not here to punish people, but we do appreciate those that go through the process in a correct manner and respect the zoning codes and the permitting codes that we have within the village. So I'm not, because I've been talking. Further discussion? Right. And if you have any questions on that or where they are, you can always feel free to contact one of us here on the board, or just come within the village hall or contact the village hall, call us. There's also plenty of email addresses that you can reach out to that are on our website as well. So feel free to use those resources. Further discussion? No further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? None opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, sir, for coming. Next item under new business is item E, MSI General Corporation, agent for DJN Family LTD Partnership, property owner of Nrpa Industries, located at North 120 West 19349, Freistadt Road, site plan review for a 52,955 square foot building addition. Give us more information and background on this new business item. We'll turn the meeting over to our Community Development Director, Jeff Retzlaff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This proposal has been before us a few times this year. Back in June of this year, we actually processed a certified survey map to expand the Nrpa Industries property. If you recall, the south property line highlighted in blue on the screen was actually moved to the south to allow for an additional 1.8 acres to be added, detached from the south parcel, added to the north parcel to create the parcel that we have before us, subject to this development proposal. In September of this year, we reviewed and approved phase 1 of the proposed development that included dealing with some wetland issues. The wetlands on the property are mostly along the eastern edge of the parcel as shown on the screen, adjacent to the existing regional stormwater basin, the Wago Pond, if you will. The wetlands highlighted in blue were ultimately deemed to be artificial wetlands by the DNR and not subject to regulation. So those could be filled or disturbed without any requirements. The wetland in the southeast portion of the parcel was deemed to be a wetland that's not exempt, and the area, I believe, was approximately 7,000 square feet. Application was made and the DNR approved the filling of that wetland area in its entirety as shown in the red. After that, the plans that we did approve were for a site plan that included expansion of parking areas on the property on the north side as well as on the south side of the proposed 55, now 52,995 square foot building addition. That's shown in the darker gray area there. Along with that, grading and drainage plans that included expanding parking on the north side to include a sort of a two-tiered parking area where closer to Freistadt Road, it would be lower. The parking area would be higher, closer to the building. And there'd be a landscaped area in between with some steps. As part of the current proposal, the phase 2 proposal, there's been some slight modifications to that plan to improve pedestrian safety. The parking lot north side of the property is going to be a complete parking lot at one elevation. And so there's some filling going on there. The elevation's being raised, and that landscape median area is being replaced. And I'll show a graphic of that momentarily. The phase 2 site plan that is subject to tonight's review and action includes some minor revisions to the previous site improvements that were made. The same number of total parking stalls are proposed, 137. However, as I mentioned, we're removing the two-tiered parking lot, landscape medians on the north side, reducing the elevation of the parking that's proposed on the south side of the building slightly. Some landscaping and grading changes. The grade along Freistadt Road is being raised slightly. Plantings around the perimeter of the property the plan has been slightly altered, but the number of planting items remains approximately the same. And lighting, previously we discussed some pole-mounted fixtures throughout the parking lot areas. The number has increased from 6 to 20. The height of those fixtures is 23 feet for the freestanding pole-mounted fixtures in the parking lots and 20 feet for those that are mounted on the perimeter of the building addition. On this graphic, it's a little difficult to see, but on the north side, you can see that median area in the middle of the parking has been eliminated. Landscaping for the overall site, again, remains roughly the same as it was previously. Quite extensive amount of plantings along the parking area, adjacent to Freistadt Road, along McCormick Drive, the west side of the property, and also along the south side of the property, adjacent to the parking lot area, and a significant amount of landscaping, foundation plantings and landscaping around the large outdoor patio area that's being created on the west side of the building addition where the office area is, presumably for, and as shown in the graphics, for employee access. Building improvements include, at this point, a 52,955 square foot addition, including manufacturing and warehouse, with 38-foot high precast wall panels with exposed aggregate, texture with smooth reveals, two color gray scheme proposed, a two-story office addition with painted split-faced CMU exterior walls to match the existing building, all to be painted to match with the same two gray color scheme. And as I mentioned, as shown on the upper right photograph or rendering, rather large concrete employee patio area on the west side of the site. There's some general floor plan information in your packet. The lion's share of the addition is for manufacturing and warehouse space with some new additional office area on the west side of the property. Staff comments or concerns include the need for easements required around the regional storm basin on where the basin exists already on the Nrpa property and in those areas where it's expanded on the east side of the property. Right now, we have no stormwater easements that will need to be recorded. Standard state commercial plan review approval required, the 20,000 occupancy bond requirement. The village engineer and public works has a memo dated December information about some technical corrections needed to the utility plan, some minor issues. And the fire department has commented with regard to the fire department connection and that needing to be located on the west side of the building, visible from the McCormick Drive right away, with the final location to be determined in coordination with the fire chief. So with that, the staff recommendation is to approve the Phase 2 site development and building plans or the proposed 52,955 square foot building and parking lot expansion for Enercon Industries Corporation, located on Freistadt Road, subject to 8 conditions. I would point out in the staff report, there are 8 conditions. There was one that was left out, number 9, and I would ask that you include number 9 in any recommendation. And that one reads that the fire department connection shall be placed on the west side of the building, unobstructed and visible from the public right-of-way, McCormick Drive. Contact the fire chief to coordinate the final location. Thank you.
Commissioners?
I make a motion to approve the site plan and elevations with the 9 conditions as presented.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion to approve? Trustee Baum.
Director Retzloff, do we, somewhere in the back of my mind, I thought we had talked about an issue with backing up on village streets into, I don't remember the rules that we established, but I noticed that there's a couple of trucks that back into the site from McCormick.
Yes, there are a couple of docks proposed on the west side of the property. We talked about that a little bit when the first phase was presented. And it was explained that given the topography and the layout and the size of the proposed building addition and the internal logistics, that was the only real spot to put the docks, while also leaving enough room on the site to accommodate the addition. It was an issue at the staff level too that was brought to the Public Works Department, Highway Department, and we asked for their opinion because we have no firm restrictions against that. In fact, if you drive through the industrial park, it's quite prevalent that type of activity takes place. And most of the streets there are, local access-oriented type streets. McCormick, Maple being the sort of collector streets through the industrial park. In this case, Public Works didn't have any issues. At least they didn't express any with regard to the plans and the docks located on the west side of the building.
Second issue, can you go to the elevations? Just confused on what something is.
Rendering or the actual?
On the right side, it's white stuff.
Patio
Banners out
area.
there or awnings, what is that?
It's like a patio place.
Oh, okay. Okay.
There's a retaining wall also all around that area. The color of the plantings has sort of that white appearance to it.
Oh, okay, thank you. All right, that's all I got.
Further discussion? No further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Unopposed? Motion carries. Next item on the new business is item F, Village of Germantown review and adoption of the village's 2021 through 2026 Comprehensive Outdoor Recreation Plan, or CORP. Give us some more information and background on that new business item. We have the Director of Park and Recreation, Gil Standrich, with us. Gil.
Thank you for having me. Okay. Germantown's first comprehensive outdoor recreation plan, known as CORP, was developed in 1990 and has been updated 4 times since then. The core update was developed by the Village of Germantown staff and the Park and Recreation Commission, along with a team of consultants, along with the village's overall comprehensive planning process from 2019 to 2021. This plan will guide recreation management and park development for the next 5 years and enable the village to apply for grant funding from the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources and other funding sources. The purpose of this document is to create an update, inventory, and evaluation of Germantown existing parks, recent park improvements, and recreational trails. It will allow us to benchmark facilities and compare services and standards from the county as well as other communities around the country. Identify the needs of all community members related to active and passive outdoor recreational opportunities. Provide a framework for the natural resource element and cultural resource element of the Smart Growth Comprehensive Plan. The Comprehensive Outdoor Recreation Plan for the Village of Germantown incorporates information from past and present planning efforts in the village, Washington County, Southeastern Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission, and the state of Wisconsin. This plan also uses metrics and benchmarking data provided by the National Recreation and Parks Association to evaluate the village's own facilities. Some of the key plans, studies, and reports referenced in the making of the plan include the 2019 Nrpa Agency Performance Review. That's the National Recreation and Parks Agency in Washington County. The 2020 Park and Open Space Plan. The 2015 to 2019 Village of Germantown Comprehensive Outdoor Recreation Plan, and the 2019 County Bikeway and Trail Network Plan in Washington County. The Village of Germantown Park and Open Space Inventory contains 12 sites. Each of the park sites are described and detailed in your comprehensive outdoor plan. Hopefully all of y'all received a copy of this, and so I won't go into detail on every park, but it talks about the park size, the amenities, and so forth that are included in each of those 12 areas. Germantown currently has 19.6 acres of park for every 1,000 residents, excluding Homestead Hollow County Park and the Little League Park. According to the metrics and benchmarks of peer agencies reported in the Nrpa 2019 Agency Performance Review, the typical park and recreation agency has only 10.1 acres of parkland for every 1,000 residents. Germantown also has 2,059 residents per park site, which is close to the typical agency, which has 1 park per every 2,181 residents. Although it appears that Germantown is doing well in comparison of peer agencies, these numbers are slightly askewed due to the fact that they count the 200 acres of parkland that is housed within the Wilderness Park in northeastern corner of the village. During community engagement activities for the core update, it became clear that many Germantown residents did not know that the Wilderness Park existed. This is not surprising given that there is no obvious public access point to the park. Arguably, if there's no public access to the park or awareness that is publicly accessible land, then it should not be counted as parkland for the purpose of Germantown metrics. Planning team for this core update recommends that the Village of Germantown determine if public access can be provided to Wilderness Park and work to bring awareness of this large environmental area to Germantown residents. Two other types of facilities are not currently part of the Village Park system, but are often discussed by the public as possible future additions. According to the Nrpa 2019 Agency Performance Review, 57.9% of agencies provided a community center to residents at a rate of about 1 center per 28,750 residents per facility. About 52.3% of all agencies provide an outdoor pool, and 70% of agencies provide some sort of aquatics programming to residents. When considering adding future facilities, the Village of Germantown Parks and Recreation Department must weigh the costs and the benefits to the community, both in terms of upfront capital investment and ongoing staffing and maintenance. The Village of Germantown offers a wide range of park, sports, and recreation facilities to Germantown residents and visitors. Within the park properties, trails and shelters allow residents different ways to engage with parkland. A wide variety of sports fields and courts in the village allow leagues and sports organizations to use the parks for practice and tournament play, while also providing space for community residents to recreate. Recently, a few tennis courts were converted to pickleball courts to accommodate changing desires of the Germantown community. Highlights of Germantown's facilities include the Gales Performing Arts Pavilion and Fireman's Park that was constructed in 2018, the Fest Hall in Dinesville Park that was constructed in 2020, the Germantown Senior Center, and the new Fireman's Park Shelter, which was completed in June of 2021. In the future, Germantown could consider adding or expanding the following facility types in the village, which are noted by the Nrpa as key categories offered by the majority of park and recreation agencies nationwide. That is an outdoor swimming pool, which is offered by 52% of pure communities, community center offered by 57% of pure communities, an indoor recreation center, including indoor gym and fitness centers, offered by 55% of peer communities. In addition, the following type of facilities may be needed to expand in Germantown: a village dog park. Residents have expressed a desire for an additional dog park, additional basketball courts, volleyball courts, multi-use courts, and youth baseball, softball fields. A self-assessment of the village facilities by those who use them most, the residents. With this in mind, the planning team asks individuals, community groups, and athletic organizations throughout the planning process the following question: are Germantown's current park and recreation facilities meeting your needs? While the results of the community engagement process are outlined more in detail in the community needs assessment section of the plan, one key priority with regards to Germantown's park and recreation facilities was maintenance and upkeep of the facilities. Several different types of groups noted that the maintenance issue with existing facilities can sometimes prevent residents from benefiting fully from Germantown's existing facilities. A prime example is drainage issue on our sports fields and the trails within the parks. Another standard listed by the Southeastern Western Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission is open for Space lands to accommodate recreation corridors for trail systems within the park. The Bugline Trail in Waukesha County is the nearest regional trail, while neighborhood parks and residential subdivisions currently have trails. They have small and typically only serve the nearby residents. Germantown has approximately 10 miles of trails across 6 different parks. A more developed community trail system would link parks, promote greater accessibility and connectivity within the village, and potentially become a regional amenity. In 2019, Washington County developed a bikeway and trail network plan. The plan was created in cooperation with representatives from many of the county's municipalities, including Germantown. Bicycle and pedestrian connections map shown at right incorporate many of those recommendations, ensuring that the trail development that Germantown undertakes in the coming years will be connected to other regional efforts. As you'll see, there are different types of trail types that can be connected within the city. These are all closely related to inside the rural area of the city, where they're close to paved shoulders and roadways. And also you can have shared paths where they can be used for different reasons that are in the rural area. You have side paths that are usually close to a existing roadway. You have trails next to the river. And then you can create traffic calming with raised intersection and small traffic circles, and continue to improve the roadways enhancements to make it safer for bikes and pedestrians. In addition to the regional trail network connections, the Village of Germantown has identified several local priorities for trail connections. These include a river trail along the Menominee River and shared use of paths that connect individual parks. Germantown has also identified areas with the potential for bike lanes, traffic calming, and minor enhancements that would make traveling in Germantown safer by bike and on foot. Priority highlight, the Menominee River Trail. There are 4 main water courses that fall within the Village of Germantown: Menominee River, Glendale Creek, Willow Creek, and Little Cedar Creek. Each of these water courses and their adjacent environmental corridors are focus areas for the village to implement future trails and public access. As part of this plan, a priority recommendation is to create village-wide trail system that identifies the exact location, facility type, acquisition needs, and priorities for river trails. The map to the right shows the potential Menominee River Trail and the Goldendale Creek Loop Trail. You can see that in red. This plan includes important consideration for both of these trails, including a connection to the Bugline Trail, land acquisition, accommodation of multiple user types, wayfinding signage, and recreational uses and businesses along trails such as equipment, rental stores, coffee shops, restaurants, and visitor centers, etc. Throughout the comprehensive outdoor recreation planning process, residents and leaders of the Village of Germantown have had the chance to weigh in on the park and recreation system and their priorities for the future. Key opportunities for community input included park and recreation questions on the village-wide survey in 2019, which allow residents the ability to express their overall impression of the parkland in the village. A park planning committee open house and October of 2019 allow participants the opportunity to comment on facility and maintenance needs within each park, express desires for new facilities using inspiration boards, discuss the park and trail system as a whole, interactive mapping exercise, and give feedback through a live digital poll. 3 stakeholder focus groups were conducted with Germantown residents in October of 2020 to discuss community desires from multiple perspectives, including sports organizations, community groups, and family of all ages. The Park and Recreation Commission provided key input and review of the planning process to determine village priorities and guide next steps. The community needs, priorities, and details that resulted from these engagement activities and community conservation conversations are woven throughout the plan. The key lessons learned and needs identified through this engagement process are summarized in this section. I wanted to show you a prime example of what a ball complex could look like in the future for Germantown. There are a lot of our sports associations would like to see a complex possibly built, not only for our leagues, but looking at the economic impact it could have on the village with state or regional tournaments, and possibly invite other teams from other states. It could be a huge event, and it could draw in several $1 million to the village over a course of a weekend tournament. The goals set forth for the next 5 years reflect the village's past 5 years of experience working with our comprehensive park plan. The goals are program and policy oriented and not specific to any one park or facility. This allows for the objectives to be implemented by the Park and Recreation Commission throughout the community, with specific park projects listed under capital projects as implementation steps to meet the specific goals. What I'm going to outline, or what you see up here, these are the goals and objectives listed in the core that are identified as priorities for the village. Explore the feasibility of developing an outdoor aquatic experience, for example, an aquatic center, or expansion of our community splash pad. Pursue an outdoor sports complex feasibility study that identifies a potential location and design for active recreation facilities. Cooperate with other public and private agencies to identify and acquire recreational lands with the emphasis on river corridors for trail plan implementation. Develop park master plans for each park based on community needs, as well as accepted park and recreation standards. Prioritize Friedenfeld Park for master planning process within the 5-year planning period. Work with public and private agencies to obtain access to the Menominee River throughout Germantown. Encourage the preservation of prime environmental corridors throughout the village and development of a linear park and trail systems, and acquire land on a case-by-case basis to maintain these corridors. Create a village-wide trail system plan that identifies location, facility type, and priorities for trails. So tonight, the Plan Commission is asked to adopt the core as a freestanding document so that the village can forward the plan to the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources for review and acceptance to ensure the village is eligible to apply for grants in the spring of this next year. Portions of the CORP core plan will also be included and formally adopted as the park and recreation component of the overall 2050 comprehensive plan. Thank you.
Questions? Mr. Nils?
That was a great presentation. I generally support it. I just was kind of curious, why was it decided to prioritize the Friedenfeld Park master planning process among all the other parks?
Well, right now, it's one of our largest parks and it has the most. We have football there, we have soccer there. They're looking to bring in possibly baseball and softball. It's all located in one area. And I think that's what most of the folks that support this kind of plan is looking for, trying to, rather than spread out as we are throughout the village, they're looking to kind of integrate into one area.
I'm very familiar with that park. I spent many Saturdays there myself with football and soccer and other things. So I hope that planning process goes well.
Thank you.
Other questions? I have a question. Throughout your presentation, you had made a mention that in some areas or somebody's recommendation or survey, they had said that a community center is normally within a population of was it 28,000 or better?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, so we're still not quite there on that. Is that something that you're thinking that we'll reach within this plan, or it's just looked at as a possibility beyond this plan?
Well, I think it's a possibility beyond the plan. I believe that with the population growth, I know it's not predicted to grow up to 28,000 over the years, but again, this is just a benchmark study comparing to other villages or cities of similar size.
And I like the idea of one of the goals being to look at ways to provide access to the river. We really have no great access to the river. When you compare us to other communities that have a river running through them, we really don't bring people to that waterfront or try to promote it in any way. And I think it's a good positive result that could be helped by the residents by providing that. So I like that part of the presentation. I also would like to see, as we go forward and look at Wilderness Park as a way to have more passive recreation, to get MMSD and Green Seams involved, because they have a fair amount of lands around there that they've acquired through either donations or purchases. And part of that plan of those lands being transitioned to provide better absorption in that upfront area was to create some passive recreation availability on them, and we have yet to see that. And it's been 10, 12, 14 years, since that's been developed, and it would really be nice to know what their plan is and when and if they're going to ever allow us that access so that we can help expand Wilderness Park, because we don't have a great way to get to it right now.
No, sir, there is no.
There's a fence line you can probably go down one of the roads along, but other than that, there is no. You could go by and not even know it's there.
Corner of Highland Road and Mary Booth, there's a pseudo parking lot there. It's just trampled down grass with not enter signs. That's where people.
That ought to draw people in. Look what it does to the golf course over by the motel there.
But those of us in the neighborhood know it, and we walk in it all the time, so.
Okay, how is it? Is it nice?
It's a fabulous park. My dog loves it. There's a bunch of ponds in there that they can go swimming in. Spectacular.
One of our previous surveyors, Bob Belfius, didn't like to go down in that area alone because he swears there's a big coyote pack that would chase him around. But yeah, I would like to see ways that we can access that park, because it is a great resource, and right now it's totally underutilized.
Yes,
And
sir.
that, I agree with you that even though they use that as part of our overall number of parks and acreage of parks, it's not fair because it is not used to any degree. So any expansion there, I think, would be appreciated for, those that just like to walk trails and be out amongst, that type of an environment. It would be great. But yeah, again, great presentation. Appreciate the input, and I support this wholeheartedly. So thank you, Gil.
Thank you, sir.
We do, unless there's other questions.
I'll make a motion that we adopt the 2021 to 2026 core plan so that we can submit it to the various agencies as presented.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion to approve? No discussion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for staying with us, and maybe next time you could talk to Jeff and he'll put you to the front of the agenda instead of at the end. Thanks, Gil. Appreciate it.